Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles, Part 1, Chapter 6. It was raining hard when the children woke the following morning. Ben was sure they would not be going on a picnic in such weather. He predicted that the professor would cancel the whole thing. The professor phoned at midday, but only to confirm that Mrs. Potter that it was all right for the children to meet him at 2:30 that afternoon. By 2 o'clock, Lindy, Ben, and Tom looked as if they could attempt an expedition to the North Pole. They wore heavy sweaters and trousers tucked into thick boots. Lindy had a cape that she often wore when she walked to school. It was a very sensible covering because she could keep her hands dry inside and her books too. She wore a large sou'wester that came down so low on her head that only her nose and chin were visible beneath it. Tom wore a duffel coat with the hood pulled up and a scarf, and Ben an old raincoat and an oilskin hat that his father used when he would go fishing. Professor Savant was waiting for them on the porch when they arrived. He was wearing the most extraordinary outfit. Long waterproof pants and a transparent plastic coat tied at the waist, which gave a balloon-like effect to the upper half of his body. These are good ones to draw. He wore a peaked cap and sturdy, heavy brogues covered by plastic overshoes. He greeted the children with his customary enthusiasm. "Hello there!" he yelled. "Isn't this just a marvelous day? I love the rain, don't you?" How are we going to have a picnic?" asked Tom. You'll see." The professor disappeared behind the house and a moment later reappeared pushing the oldest bicycle the children had ever seen. The handlebars were bent, spokes were missing, the seat was tilted at a ridiculous angle, and the whole contraption made a terrible squeaking sound. "I haven't ridden one of these for quite a while," said the professor. "Now let me see." He attempted to swing his leg over the saddle. "Ha! This is going to be tricky." He tried again, this time successfully enough, at least to get his feet on the pedals. With fierce concentration, he began to wobble around the drive. "Just warming up," he announced with a grin, at which point his trousers got caught in the chain and he came to a shuddering stop. "Oh, fiddlesticks!" The children giggled. "Mrs. Primrose," he yelled, "I need bicycle clips." He yanked the bicycle into an upright position. "Bicycle clips, sir? You don't have any." "Bother! What am I going to do?" "Tuck your trousers into your socks," Tom suggested. "Good idea, but my socks are too short. My underwear is too long, and it would all get wet in the rain." The professor illustrated this by hitching up his trousers. The children had a glimpse of the white long johns on his skinny legs and a pair of startling red socks. "I do have these, sir, if you don't mind wearing them." Mrs. Primrose put a hand in her apron pocket and shyly produced a pair of lavender garters. You'll have to ask your mom about those. The professor raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. "Well," he said, "I haven't seen a pair of those in a long time. They'll do splendidly, Mrs. Primrose." He folded his trousers and put the garters over them. "I think they look very fetching." He hopped about in the rain to show them off. Mrs. Primrose pointed at his bicycle. "I do wish you wouldn't ride that thing, sir. It's lethal, really it is." "Nonsense, woman. I shall be perfectly all right. Come along, Potters. The afternoon will be over before we get started." He climbed on the bicycle and began to wobble his way down the drive. The children hurriedly pedaled after him, calling goodbye to an anxious-looking Mrs. Primrose. It soon became apparent that not only was the professor's bike dangerous to ride, but the professor was a definite road hazard. He had a strong tendency to aim his bike at an object, a tree, a car, a pedestrian, and only at the last second would he swerve to avoid it. He turned corners sharply without so much as a hand signal, and the children were never certain what he would do next. They discovered that it was easier and safer if they rode a few yards behind. The professor seemed to need more of the road for himself. Lindy was rather concerned. "Are you going to be all right?" she called. "Yes, Lindy, no cause for alarm. I'll get the hang of this thing in a while." They pedaled slowly down to the outskirts of town. The children liked the feel of the raindrops on their faces. Their bicycle tires made pleasant hissing sound on the wet road and sent up small fountains of spray. The professor led them into a delightful country area. Busy streets gave way to empty lanes where the wet trees dripped noisily on the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The ride obviously began to have a soothing effect on the professor, for soon he became less erratic and the children were able to pull abreast to him.